Did you know that your astrological birth chart can indicate what your parent traumas or childhood wounds are and what wounds you may have to heal specifically with your parents? In this video, I want to break down these 6 placements you can look to, planets, points, aspects in your chart and your parents' chart to indicate and know what your parent wounds are. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Isabelle, your spiritual rebel friend, and I know it has been a long time since I've filmed. I've kind of taken a hiatus once again, but I'm back to talk about parent wounds because I recently got a comment on my YouTube channel with someone asking basically how their parents' chart and their chart overlap. And this is actually something I very commonly hear. People asking, is this an indication that this is a karmic connection? What do I do with this? My sun is the same as their moon, their Chiron is my Lilith, etc. So I want to talk about the 6 major placements, points, planets, aspects in your chart that can indicate what your parent wounds are, as well as, of course, with that, how to heal them and if they are karmic or if they are just your imprint, just interpreting general parent wounds in a chart. So let's dive in. And before I do so, make sure you hit the link in the description below to book a 1-hour reading with me where we can dive deep into your astrological birth chart, as well as how the transits are affecting you, your Enneagram, your Myers-Briggs, all of your personality typing, whatever you want to do in the link below. 1-hour reading. Book it now. And if you're interested in learning how to do interpretations like this for yourself, check out my astrology course, The Master Astrologer, where I teach you everything I've learned and how I've learned it about astrology in a clear, cohesive function so that you can learn everything, dive deep, and create your own interpretations. That's also in the link in the description below my reading link. And if you want to get 50, not 15, 50% off, comment the words in all caps, Master Astrologer, in the comments below. Back to the video. Number 1, let's talk about the most obvious placement in your chart, point in your chart that can indicate parent wounds or help you understand what your parent wounds are, which is the Black Moon Lilith. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, it is very likely that you found me through my Black Moon Lilith videos, and if not, it was the North Node videos. But the Black Moon Lilith is a point in our chart. It represents our hidden shame and wounds. It's named Black Moon Lilith after the first wife of Adam in the Bible, where she was very powerful, very independent, and because of that, she wasn't passive enough, and so they threw her out because she was too dominant and replaced her with more passive Eve. So Lilith in our chart represents our point of power, but also our point of shame. We feel that we're going to be rejected for these qualities, and because of that, these qualities are usually qualities that come up in early childhood. They can often be the reason we feel rejected for them is usually our parents, or it can of course be society at times, but this is because of that one of the number 1 planets, placements we can look to know what our parent wound may be. So for example, look at what sign your Black Moon Lilith is in. Your Black Moon Lilith could tell you what parent wound you need to heal, especially if it's in the 4th house, and I'll go into that further later in the video. But whatever sign your Black Moon Lilith is in could tell you what you feel your parents rejected you for. It is very likely that this is a quality that your parents are not necessarily approving of or even just familiar with. For me, I have a Black Moon Lilith in Gemini. My dad has a South Node in Gemini. And also, I'll get into later crossover aspects, how basically synastry charts for you and your parents, because that is a huge factor as well. I'm going to go deep into that later in this video. But as far as general placements just for your chart, looking to what your sign of your Black Moon Lilith is a good starting point for me. Like I said, Black Moon Lilith in Gemini. My parents, they don't embrace Gemini energy that well, so to say. My mom, very anti-Gemini energy at times. She much prefers more Sagittarius energy to gossip and talk about the little things. It's kind of just boring for her. And my dad, with a South Node in Gemini, tends to be a gossiper. And so I, from a young age, was told that this Gemini energy could be expressed in a very negative way. Are they the core reason for this? No. Not to say that we want to blame our parents for anything, but if you're looking into parent healing and you want to use your chart to know your maybe parent wounds, looking to your Black Moon Lilith can tell you what you may have felt rejected for in childhood and how you can heal it. if you want to learn how to heal your Black Moon Lilith, check out my video. Hopefully I'll remember to put the card in. I forget every single time. Check out my Black Moon Lilith series. Learn about your Black Moon Lilith and get healing tips. Number 2, I want to talk about another obvious one that's not so much parent wounds, but generational trauma, which is your Pluto. And this is again emphasized if the moon is conjunct your Pluto, or if you have it in your 4th house, especially if you have it in your 4th house. And the same goes for any placement I talk about. If your Black Moon Lilith was in your 4th house or is in your 4th house, this is emphasized. But Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth, and it oftentimes shows what our generational trauma is collectively as a society. Again, emphasized if it is in your 4th house, conjunct your moon, or even conjunct your north or south node. It shows that you're going to do deep family generational healing here. The sign of your Pluto will tell you what characteristics, I kind of slurred that word there, what characteristics your family lineage feels ashamed for. There's a deep wound associated with that energy. For me, I believe my Pluto is in Sagittarius, and I don't look into it much because it's not necessarily playing out in my family setting, but definitely something for me. With it being in Sagittarius, my whole family on both sides are opposed to travel. They're opposed to being philosophical, open-minded, and actually have quite a few wounds around religion as well, ideologies. Even though they're very idealistic and dogmatic about what they think is the right way to live. And so that could be an indicator for your family wounds, knowing your Pluto. Pluto doesn't move as often, so it really just depends on where it is in your chart, but it can indicate what you're maybe here to karmically heal. Pluto is a very karmic planet, and so this could really be something that you're here to work through in this lifetime, especially if it's dominant in the chart. Really, this could play out more, though, in transits. When you have a planet transiting over your Pluto, you could be doing more family, parent wound healing, generational healing at that time. Number 3, this is a really fun one for me to talk about because it's an aspect of a very popular planet that people don't seem to know about, and that is your moon sign. We all know your moon sign is your emotions. It is how you feel, what you need for emotional fulfillment, what kind of emotional cycles you tend to have, but it can also indicate what your parents' wounds are, your parent wounds, specifically your mother wounds, because the moon is associated with Cancer, the nurturer. The moon is our emotions, it's our emotional support, it governs our life and our emotional fulfillment, our nurturance. It often can show us what our mother wounds are. So to put this into relevant terms, for example, I'm a moon in Cancer. And so whatever your moon sign is going to tell you what you feel like your mother was to you. So while you may need, for me as a moon in Cancer, emotional nurturance and support, be very sensitive, I also viewed my mother as someone who is nurturing, sensitive, supportive, and also maybe a bit volatile at times. So basically, whatever your moon sign is, that's how you perceived your mother. And it's interesting always to note this with siblings because, for example, I have 4 other siblings, and one of which who has the same moon sign as me, but the other 3 don't. And they perceive our same mother differently. For 2 of my siblings, they have moons in Leo, and they perceive their mom as the playful, fun-loving, passionate person who loved to have fun with them and just brought the party. Whereas to me and my brother, we see her as emotionally supportive, maybe volatile, sensitive. And so this can tell you what wound you have associated with your mother, both the positive qualities and maybe the negative qualities, because with it being how we see our mother, but also our emotional needs, it can indicate to us what part of our emotions we're ashamed of because our mother modeled how we were supposed to regulate our emotions, so to say. So look to your moon sign. And again, this is emphasized if it's in the 4th house, but regardless, the moon is a very, very big one for doing parent healing, specifically mother healing, to know what wounds you may have surrounding your mother and how this changes how you embrace your emotions. The best way to heal this would definitely be to embrace those positive qualities, recognize those positive qualities, and see how it made a positive impact on your life. Number 4, I had to interject this one because while we're talking about mother wounds, we got to talk about the antithesis, father wounds, Saturn. Saturn is the planet that I notice a lot of people get caught up into and often have parent wounds associated with. Saturn is ruled by Capricorn. Capricorn really is like the father of the zodiac wheel. And Saturn often is just our inner parent. Our inner parent that we cultivate, our inner voice, is usually a result of our parents, how they talk to us. And Saturn specifically is the authority more so, whereas the moon is more so our emotions and how we felt supported. Saturn is how we felt restricted and controlled, like a parent has to in order to take care of us. So oftentimes we embrace our Saturn too much in society because we were taught we have to parent ourselves a certain way in all the things we should do. So your Saturn can indicate to you your parent, specifically your father wounds. And if you had an absent father in your childhood, this could be the quality you either lack or overly swung into in order to find that sense of masculine protective energy. So looking to the sign your Saturn is in will tell you what characteristics you either overly use or reject because of father wounds. It could indicate to you what your father was potentially like. So for example, my moon and Saturn are actually conjunct in my chart, which again kind of indicates something about my parent wounds. But with them both being in Cancer, it indicates that I saw both of my parents as nurturing people, but also volatile people who had a lot of emotions, but maybe didn't know how to regulate them very well. If maybe your Saturn was in, let's say, Virgo, you maybe have felt like your father, if your Saturn was in Virgo, you maybe felt like your father was someone who's very critical. And so now you have a very critical voice. On the other hand, this could play out in the passive sense where you felt like you had no one helping you in that setting of, or example of Saturn in Virgo. Words, you get the point. Look to the sign your Saturn is in, and either these qualities were an extreme of how your father was or something that was absent in your life and now you try to overly use. The key to this one is recognition and just trying to balance it, because we do need a bit of responsibility. Learning your Jupiter can help you balance this, and simply just healing the qualities and looking for the positive qualities in the sign that your Saturn is in. Number 5, the 4th house. The 4th house is the house of home and family, as I'm sure you know. It's also known as the IC line in your chart. I honestly can't even remember the word off the top of my head, but regardless, the 4th house is the house of home and family. And if you have any planets there, it's going to indicate to you that you have an emphasis on family in your life and comfort in home, but it can also indicate to you what maybe childhood wounds or parent wounds you may have. For example, if your moon was in your 4th house, you do need to do more healing work around your family, around your mother. If your Saturn's in your 4th house, you probably have to do some father healing. If your Mercury's in your 4th house, you may have to heal wounds around communication with your parents. Maybe you felt very misunderstood. If your Black Moon Lilith is there, maybe you felt shame or rejection for a certain quality that you embraced. The sign that this planetary placement is in your 4th house can indicate what exact energy you feel you need to heal with your parents. But regardless, having more planets in your 4th house could indicate not only a higher priority on family, but also more deep healing with your parents. And also, regardless, you can look to your 4th house to know maybe what kind of childhood you were raised with, what kind of parents you felt like you had. So for me, I believe my 4th house starts in Pisces, which not only indicates what kind of family I want to raise, but also maybe how I felt towards my family growing up. It's not to necessarily say, though, it's going to be a parent wound, so to say. Really, planets there more so indicate that there is a parent wound, especially if it's a planet such as Black Moon Lilith, Pluto, or Chiron, because these all have to do with healing. But you can look to the signs in to know how you felt about your childhood, how you felt about your parents, how you felt about the home you were raised in. So for me, with it being in Pisces, on the positive, I could have felt like it was dreamy. I got to be idealistic, playful, loving, unconditionally loved. In the negative, I could have felt disassociated, because that's the negative side of Pisces. So looking at the negative and positive side of each zodiac sign will be key here. And finally, number 6, the juicy stuff that I really want to talk about. Really, parent wounds do have to do with, so to say, a synastry chart, overlapping you and your parents' chart. One that I notice very commonly is if your Black Moon Lilith is their sun sign. I will elaborate in a minute just exactly how many different possibilities there are with synastry charts with parents, but this is a dominant one. If you have any planet that I've mentioned so far, which is your Black Moon Lilith, your moon, Pluto, Saturn, or what did I just mention? Chiron, in a same sign as your parents have dominantly. So if it's their sun or moon, this is going to indicate a parent wound. So for example, like I mentioned, my Saturn and my moon are in Cancer, and my mom is a Cancer. She also has a Cancer Mercury. She has a strong Cancerian energy in her chart. This could indicate wounds with her around authority, because Saturn is in Cancer in my chart. It could indicate emotional volatility, because my moon is there. This overlap is a huge one I see. When your parent's sun is either your moon or Lilith, this really indicates a strong parent wound that needs to be healed. And regardless, knowing their sun sign and looking at where this is in your chart could indicate where you may need healing around this energy, because regardless, the sun is the ego, and our parents aren't perfect. And so while it may have been their vitality, it may have also been their ego defense that came up while they were nurturing you. And so you may have negative associations with that energy and associations with your parent. So looking at where in your chart their sun sign would be will indicate to you what energy and where in your life you may need to heal it. So if your parent was a Virgo and your Virgo is your 4th house, you may need to do healing around being practical, selfless, and serving in your home life. If their sun was a 10th house in Capricorn, or Capricorn in 10th house, and in your chart Capricorn is, I'm saying that wrong, but if your Capricorn was in 7th house, maybe you need to heal authority and goal orientation and discipline in your love life. Also applies to the moon sign as well. If their moon sign is overlapping with any of your planets in your chart, if their moon was in Aries and your Mercury's in Aries, you definitely need to do some healing about communicating your emotions and how people communicate their emotions back to you. You may need to learn to recognize that your parents projected their emotions onto you. Knowing their sun and moon and where that is in your chart, and if you have black moon Lilith specifically, or your moon overlapping with their sun or moon, is a huge indicator into your wound healing. Also their Pluto and your Pluto. If their Pluto overlaps with one of the planets I've just listed, or if your Pluto overlaps with their sun, moon, and Pluto, that would be a huge indicator that you guys have deep parent wounds to heal, whether that's your mother or your father. Overall, the possibilities are endless. There's so many different aspects, planets, points, synastry aspects between our parents' chart and our chart that can indicate parent wounds. Regardless, we all to some degree have parent wounds. I think the moon really does show that, because we all have a certain association with our mother, and Saturn can tell us what our inner critic is, and black moon Lilith can tell us what we're being rejected for. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you have any of the specific aspects I listed? Or what is your black moon Lilith, moon, Saturn? How can you interpret that? How do you see how that's a parent wound for you? I would love to hear your thoughts and your interpretations in the comments below. And let me know any questions you have, because this is a lot of information in a very scattered form. If you want answers specifically on what your parent wounds are in your chart, and maybe knowing their sun sign, both your mother and your father, then book a reading in the link in the description below, and we can dive deep into your parent wounds as well as the rest of your chart and anything else you want to talk about, transits, your Enneagram, all of it. Book a reading in the link in the description below, and of course you can always check out my Master Astrologer Astrology course if you want to learn how to do this for yourself. It is the best way to learn how to be your own astrologer on a budget specifically. And in the end, this is just me teaching what I know. I don't know if it's the best way, but I've noticed it's the most budget friendly way out there, without it being disorganized, how YouTube and all these online resources seem to be. So if you want organization, if you want to learn to be your own astrologer, check out the course in the link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I sincerely hope you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and stay tuned for more videos. Once again, my name is Isabelle, and from my heart to yours, namaste.